Welcome to the Old Fat Coach Podcast, featuring Russell Stutely, world leader pressure point fighting, national boxing coach, Cambodia, prepared to get not only your martial arts boxing world rocked, but your whole world too.
Hi Tony, great to see you again.
Good to see you too, Russell.
Great stuff.
How are you?
Great stuff. Oh, all good. You?
Best as can be.
Stuff. Now, I told a few people that I'll be chatting with you today. So I've got a couple of questions for you, a couple of fun ones and a couple of serious ones. So
I may, because I'm hard of hearing. Let me, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Let me plug this in.
Okay.
My earplugs.
I don't talk loud either.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you better.
Good. Okay, first question. Reference the lost art of hooking. Does Bruce still talk to you?
Yeah, Bruce is doing well. I guess he's lost a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
And now Bruce, his job takes him to California a lot.
Right.
So he spends most of his time in California. And then, of course, now this past year and a half with the COVID lockdown, you know, I haven't seen anybody. So yeah. I'm hoping to get to see Bruce again sometime this summer. That would be great because, you know, when he's back in Chicago.
Fantastic. I can remember me and my guys sitting watching it going, I bet Bruce hates him, you know.
Well, this is what's funny about that. When I was demonstrating the holds, they hurt, and then I'm talking to the camera, trying to describe what's going on, not thinking, and I'm not releasing the holds, right? So he's like in agony. Yeah, that was brutal for Bruce. Yeah, and you know, yeah. I was thinking, we filmed that in 1998, I think it was, and yeah. So it's approaching 25 years for the lost art of hooking. That's astounding that time flies like that.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because I mean that lost art of hooking was our sort of go-to Bible, if you like, of grappling stuff because we didn't know what we were doing, so we look at what you were doing.
Well, you know, on that note, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I've said this publicly. The lost art of hooking has kind of been bittersweet in several ways. First and foremost, the producer, you know, kind of wanted me to be a little controversial, right? Say things that I didn't really want to say about BJJ or this or that. But most importantly, I didn't get to show any of my strikes and, you know, all the stuff that I would add in at all. We never even had a chance, okay? We didn't have a chance to do any standing, like takedowns. We had none of that. We did film a fitness-related thing, okay, where I was curling a lot of weight and benching and just things like that. That was actually filmed but never released, never edited. I've never even seen the footage. But yeah, so people back then, and even probably to this day, just think, oh, all I've ever done, you know, just grappling only. But yeah, I really wish that I could have demonstrated more of the stuff that years later I put on the Snap No Tap. But, you know, it is what it is. But I'm glad we did it. That was the first video on Catch Wrestling series like that. It launched the resurgence of catch wrestling because nobody heard of it for the most part in this country. And certainly they hadn't seen it outside of the, you know, the fake, you know, the phony stuff. But yeah, it was very, you know, and for people that don't realize, it's a big to do to film anything like that. You got to get the film crew. You have to get the somebody to work with me, you know, the demonstrator, and you know, they have to get time off of work, and you know, it's all of this, you know, and you don't get paid for that. You try to make it up in sales, So at least that's how it was with me. I'm sure other people get paid a flat fee. I did not. So,
Well, I
but
mean, most of the time you're paying out for the rent of the studio, the people, the film people, sound guy, editing guy. You got to pay out to, but back then it was VHS or whatever. You got to pay to have all of them put onto tape. You got to buy them in bulk. You can't just get one or two. You got to print off the covers. You got postage. You got all this that, and the other. And all the time that takes. People think, well, there's a lot of money in it, but there's a lot of outlay to start with.
well, for clarity, I didn't have to cover all that. That production company did all of that. They,
Yeah.
But with the exception of the Snap No Tap, yeah, I've had to do that with everything else that I've released. And back then, you had what was called tape traders. They would sell your, black market, and now it's piracy. So it's put me out of business and others. There's just no way because I've said it before. When people download your stuff, they're criminals. Okay, this is a felony. This is not something nice, to do. And ironically, my Snap No Tap was filmed by a company called Paladin Press that's worldwide, sold the books and videos of all sorts of stuff, and they ended up going out of business. All right, they had been around 40 or 45 years, and they couldn't combat the piracy. So it's it just was, it's just a horrible thing, and nobody does anything about it.
A huge problem. I mean, people download something like a major feature film or something like that, right? And they think nothing of it because those people have got billions and billions. But when you've got the likes of us lot, and we haven't got billions. So when people are taking it for free, it really is a crippler for people. It really is.
It is, and I've been not approached, but emailed or asked, Tony, would you film more stuff? And I'm very candid. No, I won't. I'm going to do this private membership thing that we'll talk about shortly. That's just simple stuff. But a big production, no, I won't do it because it would bankrupt me. Funny. This is going back quite a few years. I talked to the FBI about this. I said, look, can you do anything? I mean, it's a federal offense, and it's Interpol. This is worldwide. And the agent was very candid. He's like, you're small potatoes, you're not like Paramount or Universal Studios, like you just said, where there's billions involved. Probably 1 week of FBI working on this case would cost more to pay that agent and the groups than people like us could make in a year selling our stuff.
Yeah, like you say, it's too small for them to bother with.
Yeah.
But that's a relative thing, isn't it? It's small for them, but it's big news for the likes of us. But,
oh yeah, and it's not just us.
No,
it's been like musicians, and the cavalier attitude of some of the people on the internet is just like, oh well, you should give it away for free or this or that. Are you crazy? Yeah.
I remember a good few years ago now, about 15, 16 years ago, I received an email from somebody offering me some of my friends' stuff for download and warning me that a lot of my stuff was at the same place for download. So I went on there and said, oh, can I have that download? And the guy was dumb enough to send me an email with a link. So I had his email. So I immediately got straight in touch with my friend and said, your stuff's being offered here. We need to do something about it. Mine as well. And then we had the name of the person as well. And it turns out it was my friend's, one of his best customers. Bought everything off him, but was selling all of his stuff. And he knew him and had even been out for a drink with the guy. And that same guy was selling all his stuff illegally. It's horrible what goes on. Horrible.
I had a guy, we actually talked on the phone. This is about, I don't know, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And he pretty much said with pride that he had like 3 or 4 terabytes of hard drives with everybody's material, including mine. Okay. And I'm like, do you realize you just, confessed to a crime?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you do that? But they do. You can't. They're cutting their own throats because guys like me, I won't produce anything like that again. And there's so much more that I can teach and show.
Yeah.
So they lose out.
This was what I'm going to want to lead up to, because I know, because you mentioned it to me a while back about you got the membership thing coming up. So, which is one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I got you on here, because I know that the way forward for people is to be on there if they truly want to learn, because they're going to get, your material, plus they've got you there, and it's going to be new stuff for them. So, so I know that's coming. So can I come on to that in a bit? Because I've got a couple of other questions for you first, because that's something I really wanted to make sure you were here for, Tony. Couple of questions from people who don't really know, but so just bear with them. What's the difference between, because they don't know the striking side, what's the difference between BJJ and catch?
Oh, quite well. There's quite a lot of difference. First of all, catch wrestling predates Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, roughly, is about 100 years old. Okay, it started sometime in the 20s, I believe. And one of the original guys that taught the Gracies, not only did he have some Jiu-Jitsu, not only did he have Jiu-Jitsu background, but he also did some catch wrestling as well. So catch wrestling, it's in my opinion, a bit more sophisticated. The locks are different. They're more injurious. A lot of twists and a lot of aggressiveness. A lot of leg locks. Although now Jiu-Jitsu is attempting to, implements them now, which is again relatively a new phenomenon for them.
Yeah.
So it was like very complete. A bigger emphasis on takedowns in catch wrestling. So it has that wrestling base. It has thousands of years of history, to draw from. So if you go back in time, way back to the Egyptian periods, even you can see depictions and drawings of modern day submission holds, wrestling holds, double wrist locks, things like that. So now BJJ has its place. It's taken the sport route pretty much, whereas I've always been the strict self-defense thing, because there was no catch wrestling sport when I was a kid. So that's the beautiful thing. You have so many different styles to choose from. So a lot of it boils down to personal preference. But for me, catch wrestling is the more brutal. Jiu-jitsu is the gentle art. I'm the antithesis of that. I'm anti-gentle. So.
Well, we know that from when we were watching Lost Art of Hooking, and so my friends were jiu-jitsu. I was new to it really then. So we're doing the grappling side, right? Stand-up stuff, I was all right. I could do all my locks stood up and takedowns and stuff. But the grappling side, I was very, very new. So we would be doing what you were showing, and they were doing the jiu-jitsu, and we were handling them very quickly within a couple of weeks. And these were people with many, many years of experience, which told me that the catch method was the right way, because we were up to speed so quick. Now, all right, we trained it hard, and we listened to what was on there, and we had a lot of prior knowledge, of course, and the language that you speak, what we've said before, we could understand what you meant when you said 45 on here, or do this, or do that, or apply pressure at that angle. I could understand what you were meaning. I didn't have to try and work it out. But to me, it made catch the way forward, because it was just so quick to get up to speed. Well, and it wasn't just me, it was all our guys the same.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Part of it is that I don't want to be on my back if I don't have to. That's the wrestling way. So it's more aggressive. It's more, let me create the problem, as opposed to hoping, or whatever, that the The opponent makes a mistake. I want to make him make a mistake. And we're a whole body art. Okay, we're looking at everything from the get-go, at least the way I teach. There's other people that claim to teach catch wrestling. That's their gig. Mine is very, very aggressive. And as I've always said, I use my whole body as a weapon and his whole body as a target. So the whole approach is completely, it's completely different. So, yeah, it's just pure aggressiveness and science, making the opponent as weak as possible, putting the opponent in an unnatural position. I just had a gentleman, wonderful man, come train for a few days, and he was always basically taught, you stay on your knees, you stay on your knees. Well, I showed him when he was here, no, you don't. Get off your knees, make the guy carry your weight, and then you can move around. It's all about not being static, like a boxer coming in and out like a robot. No, you're all over as a boxer. You need to have that kind of movement on the ground, so your opponent never knows where you're going to be. Don't so much worry about position, worry about control, because we can be in the exact position, and maybe in one instance I'm controlling you, maybe in another instance you're controlling me. So it's really about control. I want to be a control freak, right? I learned that from some of the women I dated, but just kidding. But no, you just want to control, and dictate. So I want to be the aggressor, even when I may take a break, as it looks like when I'm fighting, where I slowed down. I'm baiting you. I'm controlling it. You don't even know it. Okay, I'm looking for openings, creating them.
Yeah, because the parallels between that and control in boxing, because you can control with feints, you can control by just moving your body about a little bit. You can control them, moving them in and out. They don't even realize oftentimes that they're being controlled by your movement. And when I watch your love start hooking and met up with you and stuff, you can see the parallels are even more obvious than when you're actually there. But that control factor, just being there, to the outsider, it may look like you're not doing much, but to the opponent, a heck of a lot's going on, because they're being controlled, and oftentimes they can't figure out how or why even. But they know they're being controlled.
Yeah, and like if you're on your back as the opponent, and I'm just laying on top of you, and you're nice and comfortable, that gives you, first of all, it doesn't stress you mentally. It allows you to start to recover any loss of conditioning here, and you're just frankly nice and relaxed. I don't want that. I want you to be completely paranoid. I want you to be struggling to breathe. I want you to be having these panic attacks of where's Tony going to attack me next, and that's what rips and headbutts and elbows and eye gouges and everything else.
Yeah.
And those aren't even necessarily designed, in my mind, to end the fight. It's to be another step along the way to end the fight.
Yeah. Because we had many occasions, our guys, where we'd have somebody come in who was, pretty good grappling or whatever. So we would grapple within their rules, So it was hard work, and then we'd get tapped out, and maybe tap them out, and get tapped out, all like that. And then I remember our guys, especially people like Bart and Phil and Amit, and that, would say, "Do a Jones." from
Jones, the guy, rip him. Yep.
Yeah. And so once we did a Jones, it was over.
Well, that's you just hit on the big thing there. The one word, rules. And in my life, in my area of training, my gym, there literally are no rules. So I have one of my students who's won several world championships in different disciplines. Okay, we didn't create an event for him to win, and I give him credit because every event has so many different rules. And even to this day, in 2021, the majority of my tactics and techniques are still illegal. The way that, the twists and the angles, because they're destructive. They're hard to defend, and they're very elite and crippling. But that's the thing about rules, and I've seen that through the years, where you can't do this, you can't do that. Wait a minute, this is supposed to be a martial art, right?
Yeah.
If I don't have a problem if you're not calling it a martial thing, okay, a war art, because there are no rules when it comes to self-defense. You know that, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
The only rules are self-imposed. Your limits. How far will you take it to defend yourself, or how bad will you hurt someone? So I think that does a disjustice. And I'm not just picking on grappling arts. I mean, it could be anything, right? Yeah, it could be anything. So yeah, that kind of, but like, for example, boxing, we know that boxing is considered a sport. It's never. I mean, yes, you can adapt it, and it's very effective, but it's a sport.
Yeah.
It's not.
You go back in time, and boxing was the noble art of self-defense.
Right. Back then.
It evolved into the sports side, and that's fair enough. But
fair enough.
I remember reading an article from Jack Dempsey. It was either in a book or a magazine in the 1920s when he wrote it, and he was moaning and complaining about these new boxing trainers that had turned up that were trying to make boxing a sport or just for fitness. I thought, there it is. 100 years ago, they were complaining. And the same thing's happened in all martial arts. Same thing.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just really wanted to say this about your stuff again, right? Because me and my guys, we've always said, look at what's banned in any sporting competition, and those techniques are probably the good ones to start with for your syllabus, right? So we just looked at Lost Heart Hawking, banned, 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 banned.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
And they're not tricks. They're not like just walk up to somebody and poke them in the eye. You've got to know how to grapple, how to control, how to, it's blended all in together. But I was mentioning on one of my podcasts a couple, I don't know, like within the month, how there was a time in the world where the toughest, deadliest men were wrestlers that knew this kind of stuff. Like they protected kings and emperors and so on. They had their band of Spartans, if you'd like, just the bodyguards. And through the years, even amateur wrestling in across the world has become watered down, where certain holds from 100 years ago, you can't even do anymore because, they don't want to risk anybody getting hurt. I get it, but so yeah, I'm just the opposite of that. I mean, I don't want, if you're training with me, nobody's going to get injured. You'll feel pain, you won't get injured, but you gotta break some eggs to make an omelet, man. You got to get down and dirty with this, and a lot of it is you have to change the way you think, because people are watching MMA or grappling and they see this one system happening here, this style or this approach. And my first thing is forget about that. You got to look at a broader picture and start looking at things you ordinarily, or looking at it in a different way than you ordinarily would. Look at it more completely.
Yeah, I mean, with our guys, when it was so much fun when somebody else came to train, especially if they'd given a lot of chat beforehand, and my guys would just be all over them like a rush. And a couple of times they were even trying to do their version of your accent as they were holding.
Oh yeah, hey, you talking to me?
It was like, I got you.
Yeah, well, that'll be in my membership section. We're going to have the vocabulary of the month. You got to start with your vowels: A, E, I, O, U. A.
It was so much fun to hear. My guys working with people or whatever, and you'd suddenly hear them go, I got you.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it's again, my style is not for everybody. There's people, here, I used to tell people this too, like when you would go to a health club just to work out. Yeah. People don't expect you when you go to the health club to enter a bodybuilding competition or a powerlifting thing. There's people there that just want to have a nice, safe workout environment, and that's how it should be with this. There's people who really do want to compete. Okay, go to a school where that's the focus. The school shouldn't force you to compete if you don't want to. Or like there's schools that used to exist that were more or less for a social gathering, like flexibility and doing their kata, the karate kata. So there's nothing wrong with that. They don't have to learn chokeholds. It's not their thing, So it's all about to each his own.
Yeah, I always say, as long as they're doing martial arts training, I'm happy for them. And if they enjoy it, great. Because and a competing life is a short life as well. So if martial arts and training is for life, then you've got to look at other things. You can't always be competing. So there's got to be something for everyone. I mean, and to me, the catch stuff, you can do that when you're older as well. You don't need to be a young, conditioned athlete. I mean, if that's what you want to be, you can. But you can do it from a kid right the way through to old if you want.
Yeah, and I've started training people. I've trained people that started in this at an advanced age, 50s, 60s. Even my friend Kevin that got killed, he was 70 when he got killed, and he would get on the mat now and then, and he just needed to refresh the holds and the moves just so he could defend himself if he needed to. But yeah, the good news is I've trained a lot of the thing I'm most proud of is that I've trained people in fitness that set fitness records. I've trained straight grapplers, grappling tournaments. I've trained UFC fighters. That's what I'm most proud of. You don't need 5 coaches. I can teach you the strikes. I can teach you the grappling. I can teach you the fitness and all that. I think that's probably the thing that most people that don't really follow me don't know. Like even this gentleman that came to train, he says, I have your snap, no tap, and I have your lost outer hooking. He says, so I have your stuff. I says, wait a minute. No, there's so much more that I sell. You don't have all my stuff, so there's so much that I cover, especially like the fitness thing, on how to stay strong, either as a power lifter or as a, for your grappling or fighting thing. So,
Well, I mean, that Lucky 13 in the Lucky 13 primer.
That's tough.
Yeah. I mean, we were pretty fit anyway. We were, we could do a lot of stuff. We were fit. And then I said to my guy, I said, this Lucky 13 here, it's pretty tough, So we attacked that, and we were doing your Lucky 13, and we took our fitness level up again, which we were surprised at because we were fit. We were fit.
Well, it's an open-ended thing. So the harder you work out, the exercises are all geared towards techniques, but the more effort you put into those exercises, you'll get the benefit. You may have to cut out your afternoon tea, with all the crumpets and donuts and everything that you guys eat. But
there's always something you got to give up.
Right.
But yeah, the people who want fitness stuff, I can't recommend them high enough because it's insane how fit you can get, and very quickly with them if you can follow it along. I mean, you have to bring out a DVD to get people fit enough to do the warm up for the Lucky 13.
I had a guy when I used to, this is probably going back 15 or so years, maybe more. I was teaching at a college, and this guy, kept emailing me about coming out. I said, well, we do about an hour's worth of conditioning exercises to begin the class. Oh, I'm fit, he said. So he comes out. He couldn't make it, right? He couldn't make it through the fitness. He had to stop after about 15 minutes. And then he told me, he says, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to, I'll train. I'll come back in 6 months. Maybe then I'll be fit. I says, no, you're never going to get fit anywhere else. The only way that you can get fit in 6 months for my stuff is by coming here and doing my stuff. And, so I never saw him again because I think he was a little embarrassed because he just wasn't fit, like this kind of fitness,
That happens a lot, doesn't it? People come along with that attitude of they've already got a lot of stuff, already know a lot of stuff, and then they get there, and then it is embarrassing for them when they find out that either their fitness isn't what they think it is, or their skill level isn't what they think it is, or they're nowhere near as good as they've been telling themselves and everybody else that they are, and they don't come back. Whereas, you know, what we've been very fortunate with is a lot of the people who come to train with us have said, hold on a minute, I need to forget what I was doing and start again or whatever. But we still had a lot of people walk away. But I mean, we could easily walk away when we see your stuff and go, that's too hard.
Well,
But no, our attitude was, that's too hard. Right, let's get it done.
and I'm sure that these people do know a lot of things. You know, I mean, it's just different. You know, like you're in Cambodia. Well, I know the English language. I don't know Cambodian. If I went over there, I'd be humbled, right? So I think that's part of it. You just got to humble yourself enough to say, okay, I'm entering new territory here. And I don't expect people, and nor do I want them to completely abolish everything they've learned. There may be things that are functional and can be added in. But if you want to learn what I teach, you have to immerse yourself in it and not dabble, not be doing it half-assed. You know, you got to go in all the way.
Yeah, and they won't be, you know, they won't be disappointed because it is. I just call it like as I say, if you look at most arts as or most grappling arts as, let's say I don't know, they're the rocket launcher of grappling. I go look at us, but catch is like the atomic bomb, right?
Yeah.
And it really is. It's just destroy. I remember a couple of times with our guys, we trained, and somebody came down. He was ready to go into. I think if he won one more fight, he was going to go in the UFC, something like that. And he was training with one of my guys who went past his legs for whatever. I don't know, he was in guard or whatever. Went past his legs or something. And then one of my other guys said, "Why didn't you break his leg on the way past?" I thought, yeah, good point, because that's exactly what Tony would have made him do.
Well, again, yes, you have to start seeing things,
Yeah,
not from the position that you're in, because you have to see the body as a whole. Because I try to tell people that the majority of, well, I shouldn't use the term majority, but many submissions come from that transition, okay? When you're changing from one spot to the other, because not only are you changing, but your opponent is going to react.
yeah,
You have to instinctively know how the body's going to be, because you will, like shooting, like you play snooker, I play pool, shots come up that never happened before. Well, positions on the ground come up that you probably haven't covered in training. So you have to instinctively be able to see the body and how to manipulate it, right? So you can't do that from a static thing. It's got to be more of a dynamic approach, you know.
yeah, and that's what to us was so good with the catch stuff, and the principles as well, blended with everything that we were doing with our striking stuff and all the pressure point stuff and all of that and all the angles and what angles you should be at, how to apply pressure, what you're applying this way, you can apply it this way, and
Right.
all sorts of stuff. And it made it so easy to pick up in terms of understanding. Obviously, you've got to drill it and train it, but
Right.
the actual understanding side of it was so quick for us. And all of our guys were going, I know what he means when he says that. I know what he means when he says that. I go, yeah. It's how we would say it.
Well, and since what I do is never just it's never ground fighting alone, right? It's just that's a small portion of it. There's so many attributes and science that you develop when you're on your feet: balance, motion, angles, level changes, and so on. If you don't really immerse yourself in that, then you're losing out on so much if you just focus on the ground, because you don't have those principles to draw from. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, like what my boxing or just even the wrestling, you're moving, you're changing, you're all over the place. So and what's sad sometimes is when I see wrestlers phenomenal who then transition to these other grappling styles that are just it's taking all of their best attributes out the door. You know, it's like, no, You shouldn't do that. So, but hey, again, to each his own. There's some. I've seen some amazing martial art guys. Okay,
Yeah.
taekwondo guys, wushu things, very gymnastic oriented, absolutely phenomenal. That stuff I cannot do. I'm not. That's not my thing. I wouldn't excel at that, especially now. I'd get all injured, but those guys are hell of a great athletes. Guys and gals that can do that. And so yeah, I can sit back and admire that. I'm like, wow, that's just fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's not my bag, right? So I don't get offended if people are like, oh, I don't want to. Tony's stuff is great, but I don't. It's not for me. I understand.
Yeah, that's fair enough, isn't it? It's same with our stuff. Some people look at it and go, "Not for me. Don't care." Blah blah. Whatever. That's fine. Like I say, as long as people are doing martial arts, I'm happy for them. If they're
Yeah.
training, I'm happy for them. If you enjoy what you're doing, fantastic. Who am I to say you shouldn't do it? And who am I to say you should try this or try that? I always say they should try your stuff because they just should. But can I ask you another question that people have asked me?
Yeah.
Josh Barnett, former youngest UFC champ. How do you rate his catch wrestling?
Him and Eric Paulson, they were training off of my videos, Lost Art of Hooking, for instance, and they told me so personally. Josh is a completely different style than I do. Okay, it's this is not a knock. Okay, just like Tyson with his peekaboo was a completely different style than Muhammad Ali. Okay, it's different styles. So there was a point years ago that Josh was going to come out to Chicago to train, which would have been great. Okay. But yeah, it's a completely different approach, and it's just a different style. Like I said, he was training off the Lost Art of Hooking and some of the others videos. Oops, excuse me. But there's no, what's the word? No substitute for hands-on. If I could have gotten hands-on and shown them more about the twists and the subtleties that sometimes you miss, and then maybe talk to him about, okay, this is how I move things. Now our bodies are different. I was more of a speed-oriented guy because I was a sprinter, so I'm fast. I like to move around. I'm not as stationary. But he's had tremendous success, and based on our conversations, he just came off as just a very likable, wonderful guy, and his success speaks for itself. But yeah, if anybody was interested in training with him, I'd say go for it. Because he's one of the good guys. There's a lot of people out there that I can't recommend because they don't get it. They're more like jiu-jitsu oriented, and they're labeling themselves as a catch guy or whatever style. But no, Josh is a really, he just came off as a nice guy. I haven't talked to him in years, but I followed his career as much as I can. And as I said, he's had some great success, and it can't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah, he's always seemed to come across as a nice guy and always spoken very highly of Catch and everything else. And it's nice to hear Catch getting mentioned because, of course, everything's either just wrestling or BJJ. And it's very rare that Catch gets mentioned.
Well, again, like I said, his approach is different than mine. So it's not comparable. It's just not. Okay, I do approach things with the objective of making the opponent as weak and as uncomfortable. But again, excuse me, he is maybe he's in rule sets. Okay, he's in events where there's strict rules. So even that alone doesn't make it comparable. Where I'm not restricted by any sort of limits put on me.
Yeah, I think anybody who's done traditional martial arts or done boxing or whatever will understand what you mean when they say there's different styles.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it can make a huge difference in the application as well. I mean, a peekaboo fighter is going to be fighting very, very different to an Ali type
Yeah,
fighter,
right. The guy that's out here. Yeah.
or you know, a long sword and shield guy. So huge difference between the two in that respect. But it's still boxing or it's still catch in a general term. Now, you mentioned this earlier, Tony, the membership thing. Am I right in saying that it will be at catchwrestle.com that people go to?
Yeah, yes. And there's going to be like basically two levels. One is just going to be a donation, like $5 a month, just to help keep the podcast and pay for the equipment. But the other one's going to be like $10 a month, and that's where you'll get once a month, you'll get a video anywhere, who knows how long, 15, 30, 20 minutes. It's a work, it'll be like a work in progress. And yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get a video once a month, live, and not live, but of me and the guys demonstrating stuff, or maybe one month it'll just be me talking about, showing certain kind of moves. And
Yeah.
it's a recurring monthly fee.
Yeah.
And these are videos that have never been released before, just filmed here in my home gym. And yeah, I'm hoping for great success with that, because that'll financially keep it going, because for the last year and a half, can't work, I can't do anything, and I'm
At ten
limited
dollars
to
a
with.
month, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? At $10 a month, I mean, it's
Yeah.
and am I right in saying, because we spoke briefly about the membership before, am I right in saying that on those monthly releases that you'll also be answering questions that people have sent in as well?
Well, for the members, yeah, if they email
Yeah,
me,
for the members
yeah,
only. I mean, yeah, for the
yeah,
members
yeah.
only.
If the member wants to ask a question, I'll do the best that I can to respond to the emails. Now, boy, it would be great if I had 1,000 members, right? So if
Yeah.
if we obviously got to that level, then we'd have to figure something else out, because I couldn't answer 1,000 emails all the time, right?
No, but I mean, the amount
But
of information they're getting, though, I mean, because, example, I might have a question in my mind, but somebody else or 10 other people or 20 other people have asked the same question. So I don't need to ask it this time because it's there on the site for me, isn't it? So it's
right,
good
and you know
build up
what?
into a catalogue of answers for people.
And you kind of helped me set that up, that website technically. So maybe I'll need you again. But if, let's just say I get 20 questions and they're all pretty much the same, I might just throw out I might just film something, 10
Yeah.
minutes of me just answering it, and then send it out to everybody, as an extra video that month,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I'm gonna try it. There's just always been delays, things, this and that. So I'm shooting for July 1st, 2021 to release it. And really, I have to hope for the best. And I have to trust these members that they don't pirate these videos and send them to a link somewhere where the whole world can download this shit, because if they do, and I don't have any members because of it, then I stop doing this. So
I'm
it's a
sure.
trust thing.
I'm sure that these people will be the trustworthy, honourable
Oh,
people that they should be. I mean, at $10 a month. I mean, jeepers creepers. That's so cheap. That's when for people who may not know, you get in an absolute gold mine of information from the numero uno on the planet when it comes to catch wrestling stuff.
yeah, thanks.
And and we've said it for years. Me, all our guys, my guys with BJJ black belts, we've been saying the same thing. As good as what they're doing is Tony's stuff.
Well, that's
Tony,
interesting. I've trained a lot of BJJ guys, including black belts. Some of my students are, black belts and just high-ranking jiu-jitsu guys, BJJ guys. So, I mean, I have a lot of experience with BJJ based on my students. So, which is great. And
yeah,
that shows that they're open-minded. We did a podcast with Javier, my he's one of the guys that won my world championships, and he says that things are a little different than they were 20 years ago, where it was so tribal. Now there's some more open-minded people that are willing to cross-train, but I know that there's still that tribal thing, even amongst jiu-jitsu guys. There's certain schools, like Joe Blow's school of jiu-jitsu doesn't like Tom's school of jiu-jitsu. And that makes things a bit difficult because there's a lot of probably good information out there that you have these walls built that prevent you from really furthering your education, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I've never understood that attitude. To me, that I look around, if I like something, I go, I like that. Let's have a look at that. Blah blah. You know when you see good stuff, you know when you see great stuff, and then when we saw your stuff, we go, that's it. That's what we need to be doing. End the story. That's it.
Well, you're a combat guy. That's the thing. You've had boxing. You're a street fight combat guy. So yeah, this is your cup of tea, I mean, so to speak, right?
With crumpets.
With crumpets, right? And I was lucky in a way. When I started this in the 70s, there was no wealth of information. There was no information out there, no videos, no YouTubes, nothing. So I didn't have like a million different things to choose from. I got lucky that I happened to learn from a guy that I think is the best, or was the best, and so I could focus on this. And that's another thing I tell people: no matter what style you're doing, if it's jiu-jitsu, if it's hapkido, it don't matter. You've got to really thrust, focus and learn as much about that style. And then once you've invested that time, you can sit there and say, okay, here's my gaps. Here's where, my style is weak. You don't know that if you've only been training in it 3 or 4 months or 6 months or maybe even a year. You don't know all that there is in that style. So you have to immerse yourself and really I got a tickle in my throat today. You really got to get to know what it is your style has and has not. Okay.
Yeah.
And then start trying to fill in the blanks, or just say, all right, okay, I know this art, but let me get into something that's maybe more complete, and then start from the basement, start from ground level, and work your way up. And we mentioned like old timers earlier, 50, 60, 70-year-olds. Another thing for many people who are like maybe interested in my instructor program, the Tri-C thing, even if you can't physically do everything, you can develop your mind, and the world needs better, more coaches. You could focus on becoming a coach, right? Garner all this knowledge, learn techniques that maybe you won't do or can't do, but maybe one of your students, that move would be perfect for one of your students.
Yeah.
So that's
the coaching side was one of those things I wanted to ask you about as well, because people can go to catchwrestle.com and then they can join one of your training programs to become a coach. And I just wanted to go into that a little bit with you, because a lot of people are worried, I've found, with a coaching course, that what if, I'll just pick a silly example, like a jumping spinning kick, which I know we don't do, but they say, what if I can't do a jumping spinning kick? I can't pass the course. I go, no, it's if you can teach somebody else to do it, is what it's all about. You're a coach, not a practitioner, so to speak. You've got to understand how to teach it, how to coach it properly. But to physically do something you can't physically do, it's like asking somebody who's missing a right arm to be able to throw a right cross. If you can't do it, you can't do it. So can we just go into that a little bit on your coaching program? What sort of things are expected from them and things like that?
Yeah. The most important thing, and I think that distinguishes me from many others, is I try to tell you all the how-tos. It's not like rote memory, like do it because I show you how to do it. I explain everything. You have to do this. The hand has to be at a certain angle. Everything in great detail. And to use your one-armed man example, I would expect the one-armed man to be able to articulate that. These are all the steps along the way. This is what happens to the body. This is, so it's really a thorough study. another thing, you can't just pay the money and then get your certificate. You've got to work at it, and it's lifetime training. It's distance oriented. So if you're in Cambodia, we do things via video, but you also can fly out to Chicago and stay with me and work it out. And I don't honestly know of any other human being. I've been doing this for many years. I don't know anybody else who does this, who allows people to come to their home. And it's lifetime training. You get all my videos for one, downloads. $3,000 is what the cost is. And that includes, let's say, you and your training partner. So it's $1,500 each. You guys could divvy that up any way you want. So when you fly out here, you bring your training partner. You don't have to worry about a hotel or motel because you stay here, and yeah, you have to learn all the details of everything. So yeah, if you can't do certain things, that's understood. And everything is catered to you. It's not a crash, what do you call it? Like a paint by numbers kind of thing. It's not an assembly line. I know other styles offer, you can sign up for their course and it's pre-filmed videos. Everybody in the world is watching the same videos. That's not what happens with me. I see a video of you. I see how you move. I see what level you're at already. I try to get to know you, what it is you want out of this, and start to develop you, make you personalized training, make it specifically for you. So what ends up happening, some guys focus, their training goes in this direction, some go in a different direction. It's pretty awesome, I think. And again, I tell everybody this, that you got to hurry up and sign up, because I won't be doing this forever. There'll be a day where I'll just say, that's enough. No more new students. It's done.
Well, to me, it's an absolute no-brainer for people. When you think that most people, let's say they go to their martial arts school and they're paying $100 a month. So they're paying $1,200 a year to do the same thing year in, year out. I know so many people have been training 25 years and they've been doing year 4 for the last 21 of them.
Yeah.
But they come to you, $3,000, and they've got all that material, and they've got somebody coaching them who's truly coaching. Because I've said to people so many times, when you've explained stuff about what you're doing to me or whatever, or I've seen you do it on DVD even, it's not just saying, I'll do a top wrist lock. You go from this part to this part to this part. This is how and this is why. You need to get this in place first before you can do that, because this must be in place to make sure that that can happen properly. And that must go at that angle for the very best effect, because, and everything's explained in that detail. And those principles of understanding that, which are the same sort of principles that we do in our striking stuff of angles, misalignment, balance, distance, time, and all of those things, which made me understand things much quicker. There's very few people actually coach that way.
Well, yeah, and you get like $800 worth of my videos to begin with, the downloads.
Yeah.
I mean, right there.
I mean, that's
so
another one.
Yeah, and even if you have it, you get it again. You can review it. I might tell you, okay, look at the lost art of hooking. Now look how I'm holding Bruce down. Okay, and then we work on the finer points that you may not have picked up from that video. So yeah, it's all about fine tuning things, and that's what normally differentiates what I do, from others. And because this is a very time consuming. So it's not like I can have 1,000 people. You speaking generally, if you were to enroll in a Tri-C and work your way through a membership, this is as elite as it gets. There's not 100 certified guys, okay? This is super, super elite. So you won't be one of, millions of practitioners. You'll be very unique. You'll be the only one in your town. You'll be maybe the only one in your state or county or whatever, maybe even in the country. So that, I think, is, man.
It's an enormous thing for people. I mean, I can't begin to explain to people. I try to explain to people. I can't begin to explain how good the program is for people to take on board.
Thanks.
And how much information they get, and the fact that it's a huge commitment from you in terms of the time and effort that you've put into students. And I know it because I've seen it happening with people before, the amount of time and effort you put into people, and that should be reciprocated from the people who join up, because if they could put in half the time and effort that you put into helping them, they would sail through that course much quicker.
Well, and they have to practice. I mean, I can't send you a video and then you film the lesson the same day. That's a fail. You have to put in the time and effort and practice, do the repetitions and so on. And maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month. I watch it. Then I say, okay, good. Or no, you've got to do this. But if I say, good, okay, let's move on. All right. That's why it's lifetime training, right? That's why it's not something that there's a time limit, because if there's a time limit, let's be honest, most people out there, instructors, will just ultimately give you your certificate. And is it really worth it?
Well, a lot of them give it because they can't be bothered to teach you anymore. They've had enough.
Yeah, well, it's like a lot of it just ends up being a marketing thing, they want to get that out there, and I don't take that approach. I want you to be qualified. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the shit that I had to eat on the internet, is because people they want things now, right now, or hurry up, give me. No, you have to be qualified. It's just simple. Would you want to go to a doctor, that's going to try to operate on you, that just bought their certificate and just put their time in and failed everything? No. And this is like that, because the stuff I teach you, you may have to use this to defend yourself. And if either you haven't done it right, or I'm saying, oh, you're fine, you'll be okay, that's on me now. I have to feel guilty if you use it and fail. So I'm a straight shooter with that. I'll tell you straight out, hey, you're not ready yet, okay? We'll move on so we don't get hung up on this, but you got to keep on practicing this move until it gets better. And that's the thing. It's like a giant world of technique. It's like a vocabulary of techniques that you have to memorize and use for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you'll just lose the ability to draw on it when needed.
But once people understand the principles that you're teaching them, so for example, the principles that you teach on Lost Art of Hooking, once you understand what you're saying and the principles based on it, the techniques just flow, don't they?
Yeah. Okay, so I had a music background, so I always like to use the music analogy where, a music teacher doesn't teach you every song ever written, doesn't teach you any of that. They teach you how to read music so you can play any song you want. They teach you all the exercises you need. And then if you're a songwriter, you learn the principles of music and theory, and then you can create your own music. And that's what I try to do. I want everybody to create their own way of fighting, their own way of approaching things based on sound scientific principles. That's why I say, like Josh Barnett and I, totally different styles. If you were living here and I trained you for 2 years, 3 years, you'd have a different style than I would. Yeah. But it's all about developing your own mind and opening that up, as opposed to just being a repository of, oh, I do this because my teacher told me to. No, you got to know exactly why you do this. And a lot of guys just don't know. It's not their fault. They just do it because they were told to do it.
Yeah. I mean, we see it all the time even in boxing, at good boxing gyms, where people are just told to go and do, go and do 5-6 rounds on the heavy bag, and nobody's watching them on the heavy bag to see that they're even working it properly. They say, did you do your 6 rounds? Yeah, well done, go home. That's not coaching. That's just a fitness regime. Whereas with your programs, it's proper coaching. This is what you got to do it for. This is why you got to move your body this way, move your body that, whatever it is. There's an explanation behind it, which you don't get. Which I've been to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clubs all around the world, all over the place, over many, many years. I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of instructors, maybe thousands. I can't think of many who actually explain things properly in a detailed way. Not like they get with Catch, with you, I mean, right? There's not many, I don't know if you've met many, that actually explain things in a detailed way of why is that happening? Why are you doing that? How is that working like that? Why is it this one, then that one, then that one, then that one? Why do you do it in that progressive way or whatever? Why are those principles being used? It just doesn't get explained. We explain it, you explain it, but I don't know many others. I've met a few, but
Well, I kind of hope when I do this membership thing, the $10 a month thing, that'll maybe inspire people to join the Tri-C as well, because
yeah,
you're not going to get a certification from this, and you're going to be learning what everybody else is learning. The Tri-C
yeah,
is what we're talking about here. You'll learn all these customized stuff, but you're right. And it's been like that, especially in boxing. It's been like that forever, or you just go to the gym, you just work that bag. Once in a while, the coach will walk by and say, "Oh, step into your punch," or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not personalized instruction.
No,
And even in martial art classes, many times it's just
even worse.
groups.
Yeah, I mean, you could put one person and a row of mirrors up and say that's how it should all look, because they all want everybody to look exactly the same doing each move. And you go, well, no, we're all different. You should look exactly the same. You should look,
Yeah.
the principle might be the same, but you should look a bit different.
Well, I get it. I understand how it is when you're running a martial arts class, but
Yeah,
I think sometimes when the kids or the people, I don't mean kids, but when the students show up, maybe today you don't actually learn a technique. You get the chalkboard out and you sit there and you give them a lecture like you would in school. This is the physiology. This is the anatomy of the human body. This is how. Like, okay, so one of those things about you asking the difference between BJJ and what I do, the majority of my holds are what are called compound holds, meaning like if I put you in a top wrist lock, it's going to pop your capsule in your elbow, it's going to tear your rotator cuff and potentially labrum, and it's going to attack the collarbone. It goes after 3, as opposed to anybody else who it's just going to attack the shoulder. Mine, there's more to it. So you have to understand that as an instructor. So you have to learn anatomy, and you would learn that with me. I would explain why, and this is why you do it this way, not because I tell you to. I'm going to
yeah,
explain why, right? So but I do think in general, no matter what martial art you're teaching as a coach, you need to sometimes lay off this rolling and goofing around in class and just, hey, let's have a structure here. I want to talk to you today. It's a lecture day, right? And you're going to learn the hows and the whys and the ins and the outs. And I think that would go a long way because people can talk intelligently. I run into folks who are more, even though they're students, they're more fans because they keep on repeating the same old hyperbole, the same old myths that aren't really true, and that's because they've never truly delved into the science behind what it is they're doing. Okay, it's like, I mean, I don't know how much more clear I can make it, but
yeah.
I want you to know everything.
With the coaching side of stuff, it reminds me, I think we spoke about this once before. It reminds me of the coach of Roberto Duran and Benny Leonard and Larry Holmes, he coached as well, Ray Arcel, Mr. Arcel. And he said that coming to his boxing gym is coming to class, just like going to school. And you've got to learn in class. And if you didn't learn something in class today, you've wasted that time at school. And it's so right. And it reminds me of the drilling side of stuff. Like when I've seen you talk about drills and say drill this, you don't say go and do 10 of them, do 20 of them. You might say do 10, but it's not just do 10. It's that do that drill to learn how to do this and why your weight should be there or why that angle should be there. Do that drill of, say, let's say just top wrist lock to understand why there's a turn, a twist, why is it misaligned? What angle should it be at? Where should your weight be? Where should your elbow be when you put it down at the side of it? Is it
Yeah.
how are you going to misalign it? Drill it. You might say 20, 50 times or whatever, but drill it to learn that and understand why you're doing it. Whereas most people say, go and do 50 top wrist locks, left and right. And that's not drilling for a reason, that's drilling by numbers, which really boils my cabbage. Right.
Well, and this is where your conditioning comes into play, because you have to have the physical capability to do these, 50, whatever the number is, 50 times, but properly. Okay. The minute, if all you have in your tank is to pull off 5 moves and then you're gassing, you got to stop, because if you're continuing on doing it improperly and sloppily, that's your muscle memory there. You're going to learn this stuff improperly. So conditioning, and not just for cardiovascular capabilities, but to get your joints and your body strong to be able to resist or to be able to deal with accepting these submission holds. Because the stuff I do, as you know, is extremely painful, and your training partner has to be capable of going through with this. All right. They may, if they're not in shape, it's like, okay, man, I can't take it anymore. Stop. And then that's no good. So you have to be in shape to do this. And you're right. It's all about adjustments and angles and subtleties that you'll be exposed to. You may not memorize it all right away, but over the course of time, you'll see it. And I tend to focus a lot on gross motor skills. So it shortens the time that you need to, for you to learn. And I try to stay away from all the flashy show-off stuff, because I mean, that's cool to show off at a party or something, but it's not really functional. And sadly, a lot of people get lost in that world, and they train that way. They train for the fancy, look at how, this is. No, that's stuntman. That's Hollywood movie type of wrestling. That's not the real way. You know what I'm saying? So,
but when they learn it the correct way from you, so just take it again, that top wrist lock, and they learn all the different components that make up doing that technique as correctly as possible. They can take those same components, once they've learned those principles, the components, the bits that make the technique, whatever you want to call it, we call them players, but whatever, they can take those same principles and apply it to double wrist lock. They can apply them to another lock. They can apply them to a knee lock, a hip, ankle, blah, blah, blah. And they can start taking those principles of misalignment, creating a base, where your weight is, and blah, blah, all of those things. So it makes the learning process so much easier. It sounds like there's so much to learn, and there is. It's a huge, but it's not just this way, it's in depth as well, isn't it? And once you learn the depth of one thing, you can learn the depth of the others much quicker.
Correct. And I developed this thing called ISR years and years ago, instant submission recognition, where I teach you to train even when you're not in the gym, so you can instantly see submissions. Okay, this is a big problem. Recognition. People, even really advanced players and fighters, they only know from a position. They can't, if there's a slight variation, something they're not used to, then they fall apart. They blow it. They miss it. Whereas there's so many ways to tap a guy out or even hook him. And I teach that, how to see it. So eventually it's instantaneous. You can instantly say, okay, I can do that. Or if you're coaching or watching a fight, oh, he could have went for that. He could have went for that. He could have went for that. And that's why I used to tap people out so quickly, because I could see it. That I would make their body move and bring that thing a little closer to me as I'm moving. So it's like we're both. I can't get the camera right. We're heading in the same direction, and that's something that that I teach and share with people. It's important. It's an important process.
Well, I remember on Lost Art of Hooking, there was one move you showed. Where when people are on the back and they got their legs out and they bring a leg over in front of their knee to stop people getting over. and you said, "Oh, when I do that, you can break it like this. You break it with this arm. You can break it with that. You can break it with your head. You can break it with that. You can break." And you suddenly rattle through about 6 or 7 things you can break it with. I went, which was again your ISR thing that you talked about.
Yeah.
And that was a light bulb moment for us lot. Then we're looking at that, going, "Ah."
Yeah, and then you're
You know, I mean, you just go, "Oh, that was."
well,
It's,
and the groin. I mean, the groin is always there generally. The eyes, the throat, the
yeah,
throttling chokes, all this. There's just so much stuff that people tend to forget. Okay,
yeah,
because they don't see it because it's banned in any tournament. So, and here's where the myths come into play. Well, I can protect myself there. I can do that. No, thanks for thinking you can. It's good to think positive, but it's been proven and shown in my gym time and time again that no, you're not going to defend that. You're going to have to do something drastic, and when you do something drastic, now something else opens up that you're
yeah,
vulnerable for. It's a trap. It's like you just start. It's like a snowball. It's just getting bigger and bigger. You're just opening yourself up for more stuff. So that's where the whole approach of how you fight has to be different. And that's when I said earlier in this podcast that you have to open up your mind and start thinking outside of the box and seeing things differently. It's a whole different type of approach. So, like, if I knew that you can't hit me in the groin, you can't poke my eyes out, okay, so I would probably take different risks if I didn't know any better. But if I know all that's going to happen, I got to look at everything. I got to approach this completely differently,
yeah.
right? So, yeah, it's just a whole. Yeah, it's just a different mindset, I guess. Because
Yeah.
it's just more. Mine is more aggressive, street oriented, completely, and it's a complete thing. Literally, truly, no holds barred. That's it with me. There's nothing barred. Nothing at all.
Because we were training with your stuff years ago at our gym, and this one lad come in. He was a cage fighting guy, and he said, "What's the rules?" None.
Yeah.
Look, what? He said, "Oh, all right. Well, can I get out if you want? Can I do it? Yeah, if you want. Can I go for leg locks? Because a lot of them weren't allowed leg locks at the time. They
Right.
got to a certain level." He said, "Can I do a leg lock if you want? You can do it if you want. Do what you like. So as long as you're not injurious on purpose, you do
Sure.
what you want." Yeah? And he was absolutely gobsmacked with it all, and then proceeded to get lit up by my guys. It was quite amusing. But it was just that thing. But that bit on that, I'm going back to that where you said I can break it with this, I can break it with that, I can break it up. That was such a light bulb moment for me because it was one of those ones where you go, of course you can
Yeah.
use anything to do it because it's a principle of whatever to make a break. If you've got a fulcrum, a lever, and a base, you can break it. So the base could be my arm, it could be my forearm, my upper arm, my head, my knee, my shin, and it could be their shin, could be whatever. Anything that you put there could be the base. As long as you got the leverage, you're away. And I was just going, like that. And that transformed what we were doing again when it came to the grappling. So, and the annoying thing was that we knew it stood up, but hadn't thought about it.
Well, I look at it this way: if you trained with me, it's like you're getting an advanced degree in engineering because
Yes.
that's what it is. It's a lot of martial arts have labels. Uh, we don't have a label, but you will be getting. You're going to know the body and how to engineer science, like you just mentioned, the fulcrum, where to put it, the lever principle, all of that jazz. And it's fascinating. Even if you don't want to become great at it yourself, if you don't want to really become the world's greatest fighter, you're going to get all this knowledge, and it will change the way you look at any MMA, any Abu Dhabi match, anything like that. Because now you're going to be looking at it and saying, "Oh my God, look at all these missed opportunities." It can become frustrating, because you'll be like, "Oh my God, he didn't do this, he didn't do that," But Yeah, that's part of the thrill of it. You really become knowledgeable, and isn't that what it is? Knowledge is power.
Yeah, and we've all been told, and we've said ourselves for years and years and years, martial arts is a lifetime of study. Well, just going up and down doing basics and repeating that every year for 20 years isn't a lifetime of study. But doing something like the Tri-C or something like that, that now that's a lifetime of study. And I mean that in a good way. I don't mean it takes you a lifetime to learn it. I mean it's a lifetime of discovery because the way I like to put it is that on our stuff, we've done the same thing on our stand up and our pressure point stuff. We've done the same thing. We'll give people the information like you do, and then in such a way that they discover it for themselves, if you like. When I got that eureka moment with you doing the break it, break it, break it, I discovered that myself after you said it, if you see what I mean. So I discover it for myself, so I can never ever forget it. And I think that's one of the keys when they come and learn with you is that yes, you're giving them the information, but it's not spoon feeding saying, right, here's A, now here's B, now C. So it goes A, B, C. It's teaching them how and why, and they can work out that D and E come next themselves because they've been given A, B, C correctly, if you know what I mean. And they're going to learn so much so quick that they will be amazed at how much they can learn and that's why it's a lifetime. Not that it takes a lifetime to get the information, but there's a lifetime of exploration, if you like, because there's no limit to what you can do other than your own imagination and the situation.
Yeah, you set your own limits. Yeah. Well, again, it's just like music. It's a lifetime thing with music. The greatest musicians continually practice and perform and learn new music, new songs or new arrangements. And that's what keeps it fascinating. And I have streamlined, there's a lot of stuff, let's say in amateur wrestling, that you just wouldn't use in
Yeah,
any sort of competition, be it MMA, Abu Dhabi, or, submission grappling or street fighting. So I try to eliminate all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're focusing straight on principles and the most important, devastating techniques and approaches. And you're right, it's a lifetime because of what everything you've just said, and it should be a commitment, just like a relationship. Hopefully, with your significant other in your life is going to last a lifetime. Your friendships with your buddies will last a lifetime, and you'll grow and develop. That's how this is. This should become a love affair, and you should just and just it's such a deep well. There's so much to draw from, only
right.
limited by your knowledge and your imagination and your creativity and your
Yeah,
ability to improvise. I teach how to improvise. That's what part of that instant submission recognition thing is. It'll make you improvise along the way. You'll do things
yeah,
that you didn't even think. It's automatic. It becomes ingrained in you. It's an autonomic response.
yeah. We've had that happen so many times with our guys. I remember a couple of times with Phil, Bart, and Amit, where all of a sudden they got you. You go, what'd you do there? Don't know.
All right.
I'm not really sure what I did. I just followed the principle, and all of a sudden I got something. And again, it's from that way of doing it, like they're going to get on the Tri-C. I mean, to my mind, everybody should be on it. It's like going to to university or whatever, or buying the Encyclopedia Britannica or whatever. Whichever way you want to think of it, if you're into martial arts, you should be doing it because you don't need anything else really. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
I'm
because I
not.
covered it all. The striking, all of it.
Yeah,
You get all of it. But
yeah. I mean, they should be on it, and I can't recommend it highly enough. I can't recommend you highly enough. You know that,
well,
and
thanks.
it's just you know people should be there. It should be done. It transformed everything that we were doing. We knew what we were doing stand up, but we didn't know what we were doing on the ground. And all of a sudden on the ground we could handle things that very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. We were at a level that we shouldn't have been that quick, if that makes sense. But it was because we understood the principles that you were talking about and the way it was set out and the way you were explaining it, how and why, I truly believe that the learning curve for people is so steep, they're going to pick it up so quick, because what took you years to learn because you didn't have this access, you can give people in minutes.
Okay, so on that note, I had a music teacher once that said, I can tell you everything you need to know about music in 3 days, but
Yeah.
it'll take you 3 years, let's say, to get the technique, right? And that's the same thing. Yes. I not really in 3 days, but yes,
Yeah.
I could teach you quickly, if you're receptive, if you want to listen. And most of it would be more lecture oriented if we're
Yeah.
going down that path because it's science.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know a guy, I'm not going to mention names here. He's very gifted, really good grappler, really, really, really good. And he trains with me, trains with somebody else, and this and that, whatever. So the somebody else, his coach is was just for years holding him back with his belt ranking. Okay. And this kid was a stud. He was a monster. Some teachers do that.
Yeah.
They want to hold you back. I'm the opposite, man. I want you to progress quickly. I want you to get that recognition. Why would I want to stifle that? The only time I'll do that is if, when you're not really good, I'll be very honest. But yeah, it's people, like I say, people have agendas. People look at things differently. People always have an excuse. You know, you have to have an open mind. You have to say, okay, I'm going for this. I'm
Yeah.
I'm in. No matter what it is, no matter what you're training, no matter what it is you decide to do, you have to say, hey, I'm all in on this. I'm going to give it my best shot. And that's
It's
just
got
the
to
way
be
it needs to
done.
be.
Got
Huh?
to be. Like you, we don't like this, because I've always said the educational system is messed up in so much as you take in England, for example, it used to be you take 11 plus when you're 11, and then you take another exam at 16, you take your A levels at 18, you go to university, you qualify at 21, blah, blah, blah. And I say to people, what if he's clever enough to go to university at 16? Why should he have to wait till he's 18?
Mhm.
And what if he's dumb enough that he's not really ready till he's 19? So why are we holding back the guy who could have gone? And it's the same with martial arts. They say, oh, you got to wait 3 years before you can take your black belt. I said, well, he might be good enough in 6 months. He's gifted. So he's saying he's got to hang around for 2.5 years waiting for this dope to catch up. And you go, it's not on. So we'll say, like you, if they can do it, they can do it. It's that simple.
Well, let me add something here because, again, in the martial arts world, sometimes these masters, grandmasters, or whatever, they kind of put themselves up on a little pedestal.
Yeah.
With my music studies, I failed. Okay, my teachers were really the best in the world at what they did. I mean, they were awesome, and I failed them. I never lived up to my potential because I just didn't apply myself as much as I could have. I did in this in learning how to fight because it was a whole different thing because my life was on the line literally. But with the music, you know, I started music later, studying later in life after I'd already done. Um, I was done training with my catch wrestling. I started studying jazz theory, but
Yeah.
I could have become so much better. And yes, I had life things happen, health issues and whatever, but still, I failed because I didn't apply myself enough. It wasn't my teachers. It wasn't like, you know, that's why sometimes now I won't even play for anybody because I'm out of shape and I don't want it to reflect on, my teachers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so my point of bringing this up is that I can relate to people who maybe just didn't try hard enough and now they have regrets. So I won't get mad if you're not trying hard. I'll press you gently. Say, hey, try a little harder, or let's break it up. Let's make it a little more interesting, right?
Yeah.
You can do that when it's a personalized training thing. Yeah, but my whole rant here, my ramble is that I've been on that end where
Yeah.
I never lived up to what my music instructors probably thought I was capable of doing. Shame on me. And that bothers me to this day because one of my music teachers is dead. Okay, so he'll, and I moved on from him, but I still, kept in touch and all that. He passed away, so he never saw me reach the heights that I could have.
Yeah.
That
I
sucks.
mean, I used to say to people things like when you're 82 years old or 92 years old and you sat on your rocking chair on your porch, right? You're not going to sit there rocking going, oh, I'm glad I didn't do that course. I'm glad I didn't do. You're going to sit there regretting the things that you haven't done, not regretting the things that you have done. You're not going to sit there and go, yeah, I wish I didn't get, really highly ranked with Tony. Oh, if only I hadn't gone on the Tri-C program and enjoyed the last 30 years of training. If only I hadn't done that. No one sits there doing that. They sit there regretting the things they haven't done, not regretting the things they have done. So,
Well,
yeah,
the one thing, you can
get on
always
it.
you can recover money, you can this or that, but the one thing you can't ever get back is that lost time. Okay, you can't make
Yeah,
up for it. If you spent 5 years training with somebody that was a waste, or you just didn't train with anybody for 5 years, you're not going to get that 5 years tacked on to the end of your life. Okay, that's already gone. So
yeah.
you can't put things off, no matter what it is. Again, it's not just with training with me.
Get
It's
on it, get it
anything.
done. Just get it
Yeah,
done. I say to people all the time, just get it done. Like when you were talking about the guy who came along said he wasn't fit enough and was going to go away. We
yeah,
say, no, you get fit on the job. You start
yeah.
now. This is where you're going to get fit. Don't worry about it. Just keep coming. You'll get fit. And I say to my people, don't worry about it. The best time for you to have started was a year ago. The second best time is today. So just get it done. Doesn't matter if you're out of shape, you can't do it all properly. You have to keep taking a break. So what? You've started. You've done the hardest thing possible, which is to get started. Most people can't get started. Once you get started, you're away. And I can't say to people, advise them strongly enough. Get started on the Tri-C, get started with Tony, and everything changes for you. Everything changes. Your outlook
Yeah,
on everything changes. It's a complete. It's not only your martial arts changes, your combat changes, your self-defense changes, your life changes. Because if you can commit to that properly and start putting in a bit of effort in that, it opens up everything else for you. Because you suddenly feel like you can do lots of other things as well. Maybe your work changes, maybe your home life changes for the better, whatever. But once you get on it, things change. I can't recommend it enough. Sorry, Tony. I sound
no,
like
it's,
you're when you're
hey,
sound like a stalker.
I should hire you as my PR man, I guess, right? Yeah, your life will still have its ups and downs. But you'll have the sense of accomplishment. You'll know that you're healthier, fitter, more knowledgeable, and that has its benefits. But and with this self-defense stuff, I hear from a lot of people. Well, I live in a nice neighborhood, or I this or that. You know something? When your life is threatened, okay, I don't care where you live. The moment your life is threatened, there's no more dangerous place on planet Earth than where you're at right then and there. Okay, and I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Other people have been there. So that, to me, the peace of mind of knowing via this training with me is okay. I'm going to be prepared for that inevitable moment eventually. Okay, you won't know it. You won't be prepared after the first lesson, of course, but down the line you will be prepared. Whereas if you're doing more sport-oriented stuff, you're not really covering that. Okay, and you're kind of left to fend for yourself. You won't be with me because I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to discuss things that have happened to me and to others, and get your brain to start going down that path. So,
Yeah.
so that gives you peace of mind.
And
That's
there's that
important.
old saying as well, isn't there?
Huh?
Maintain an art. There's that old saying as well. Maintain an army for 1,000 years if you only need it one day. And
Yeah,
and by training, if they join the Tri-C, this it's like they're getting ready. Hopefully, touch wood, they'll never ever need it, but they'll have an amazing time training and learning. And if they're as lucky as we were a great bunch of guys who loved training and just every session it was because we were pretty good at stand up, to be fair, and
yeah,
and
you are.
so we'd say to him, right, let's do some stand up, and everybody. Well, should we do some catch first? All right, come on then. So we started doing more and more catch and less strike because it was just such fun to put each other in agony all day. You know,
Yeah,
not in a
right.
nasty way, but we were just, you know, not injurious, but we were putting each other in agony and laughing while we were doing it. It was that much fun. It was that painful. It made us laugh.
And it
And
makes you
you know,
realize how vulnerable you are. You know,
yeah,
yeah, because yeah, it's an interesting concept, but you know, for me, you're getting back to this. Let's hope they never have to use it in the street.
yeah,
Great, but then too, they can modify this stuff for their rule set if they decide to compete,
yeah,
or they can ask me, "Hey, I'm competing in such and such a tournament." I'll be like, "Okay, what are the rules?" Because every tournament is different. So you know, then I'll certainly help you with that. You know, no problem. But ideally, though, you know, I want you to be a monster. You know, and it can happen, and it can happen quicker than most people think.
yeah.
Because I don't hold anything back.
I
Contra-
know.
right. I mean, it can be
You're quite straightforward with stuff, Tony.
well, but it hurts people's feelings sometimes, or it's controversial, or what. I don't mean it to be, because you know I admit my flaws and my faults, right? So,
Yeah,
but you got to know, okay, do I think this guy is good? No, but let me tell you why, or let me tell
yeah,
you who I think is good. This is why,
yeah.
you know.
But you happen to tell the truth. You see, that's the problem.
Well, I hope I am. You know, I think I
Yeah,
am. So,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
just.
bad. Yeah.
Well, you end
But
up having like a circle jerk, okay? You know, and you don't want that. You need cold hard facts, right?
yeah,
On how violence is, or this or that, and you know what can potentially happen here. Um, you know, so you just have to sometimes. People just tend to be like oblivious sometimes to this. They don't want to hear it. They bury their head in the sand. You can't do that.
no, I mean, well, you open people's eyes up to what's going on, but at the same time, training with your stuff, it is an absolute scream, both literally and
Ow!
metaphorically.
Ow! Oh!
I
Yeah.
remember on one of yours, I can't remember which one it was, but you were, Bruce did it to you, I think. It was one time where he got his own back, and I think it was you was putting a rear choke on him, and he did your leg one where you snapped the shin, and you just said you're about to hear a grown man cry or something, and we thought because that one became my favourite one.
Yeah, and that one, people don't do it right. You know, there's
No,
subtleties that you just miss. Okay,
yeah,
and there's shin locks all over the place. I mean, you're
yeah,
very vulnerable. People tend to be very vulnerable because they let their legs kind of dangle. My whole thing is you got to learn to use your legs as your third and fourth arm. And you
yeah.
know, when you're on your feet, you use your head as your third arm and shit. So but yeah, oh boy, does that hurt.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and so many people feel so much pain with that one as well. I mean, I've not met anybody who isn't screaming on that one.
No.
But when you talk about stand up using your head as the third and fourth arm, again, that's old school boxing that's missing today, you know, and that side of stuff is something that we've always been big on with the striking is using your head. We say use your head, and we mean that in all ways, not just use your head for thinking, but use it as another tool, another weapon. But Tony, we're coming up towards the end. I'm sorry to take up so much time,
Okay.
but is there anything you wanted to let people know about? Catchwrestle.com is on the screen. It's been on the screen for a while, and that's definitely where they can go and get the Tri-C, and they
Yeah.
can get the new membership.
Yeah. Well, the
Which
membership's
they
not
keep
up.
us on anyway. That's ridiculous at
Yeah.
$10. I'm going to have to speak to you privately. You got to put that up. That's crazy.
Well, the membership isn't up yet, but the Tri-C has been up for years. So just go to
Yeah.
catchrussell.com and then you'll see training opportunities and go to the Tri-C for that. But yeah, I can teach you pretty much everything. The only thing I cannot promise is that you're going to get a beautiful head of hair like I have. Okay. That may not happen.
Clearly,
So,
you can't promise that.
right? Hey, I won't. At least I won't I won't grab you by the hair if we ever have to fight. So look at it that way. But no, I just want to take a chance or the time again to thank Russell, who's been great, and I'm going to have him on our podcast coming up shortly. He was on one previously. I'd like to have him on again. He was like, we got a big response from him when he was on. And yeah, it's just awesome. And I want to thank everybody out there for listening. And just remember, it's not about me, right? It's about you and finding what works for you, and a coach that you get along with personally, and a training partner that you get along with personally. And I wish everybody the best of luck in their journey and their training. And stay safe in the gym, stay safe in your real life. And just thanks again, everybody, for listening. And thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Tony. Great to speak to you again.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys and gals. Remember to tell everyone to join in next time to the Old Fat Coach.